Hi, guys. This is Eapen Thampy, registered lobbyist with Missouri Hemp Trade Association. Wanted to do a quick video blog here and share some information about what happened at the Missouri Capitol this week regarding an existential threat to Missouri's hemp industry. That is House Bill 1328. So here's the background on this issue. The Missouri Marijuana the Missouri Cannabis Trade Association, also known as MoCan Trade, which represents virtually all of Missouri's marijuana industry, which, as you already know, is a constitutional monopoly and has created a lot of controversy over licensing and access to licensing. Has gotten their lobbyists, Steve Tilley and Tom Robbins, to promote legislation that would wipe out most cannabinoid sales and production from Missouri's hemp industry. So they went out and found Representative Curtis Gregory. Representative Gregory is from Marshall and Saline County, and gave him language that he filed as Missouri House Bill 1328. So this legislation would essentially do two things. Number one, it would redefine hemp-derived cannabinoids, intoxicating hemp-derived cannabinoids, as marijuana. So this presents a really interesting conundrum, right? Because hemp and its derivative cannabinoids are no longer scheduled drugs; they're fully federally legal. But this proposal would have them redefined under Missouri law as marijuana, which would undermine the intent of Congress and the federal uniformity of legal hemp promulgated by the 2018 Farm Bill. The second thing that this legislation would attempt to do is only allow licensed marijuana dispensaries to sell intoxicating cannabinoids. So your Delta 8, your Delta 10 products, and other THC isomers, or even cannabinoids you might not think of immediately, like CBN, could be defined as intoxicating, and the marijuana industry would have the exclusive right to sell these products. So obviously, the Missouri Hemp Trade Association position is against this proposal. We support reasonable regulatory frameworks. We've been working with State Representative Rick Francis from Perryville on a proposal that would prohibit, for instance, sales of certain cannabinoids to minors, have milligram limits on certain edible and ingestible products, have better public safety and testing protocols to build as a way to build consumer trust and create consumer trust. So we're not unaware of the issues facing the relatively unregulated state of our industry. We want good regulation. Our businesses want good regulation. That gives us security. It gives our consumer security, and it helps out. It helps weed out any bad actors if they're out there. So we support reasonable regulation, but the proposal promulgated in House Bill 1328 is probably the worst possible way to address any regulatory concerns. For one, right now, about 5,000, in our estimate, about 5,000, maybe as many as 6,000 retail establishments in the state of Missouri sell a hemp product, probably a Delta 8 or a Delta 10 product, definitely CBD and other cannabinoids. So all of this retail activity would be wiped out, as well as we have companies like American Shaman in the state of Missouri that does 70 odd million a year. We have Top Shelf Hemp that does 10 to 12 million a year. We have Pinnacle Hemp that does 6-7 million a year. We have probably the top 10. And actually I'll get to this in a second. We had a gentleman from Pulaski County who's investing $65 million into Pulaski County for a hemp beverage bottling facility. So we estimate on the production side, Missouri's 10 largest hemp companies probably account for right now somewhere in the neighborhood of $250 to $300 million a year. We support thousands of jobs directly and probably tens of thousands of jobs indirectly. So, House Bill 1328 would put us effectively out of business. It would slow down the progress of investment in hemp fiber processing and infrastructure development that we need to attain commodity market status for seed and fiber crops. So that's basically the background here. So Representative Gregory got his bill filed uh, on the last day of filing, which was, I believe, March 30. And then about 2 weeks later, the Speaker of the House, Dean Plocher, assigned it to a committee, to the General Laws Committee, and then the next week, Chairman Alex Riley from Springfield noticed a hearing for this past Tuesday. So here's what we did. We spoke to the chairman. We spoke to the vice chair, Justin Hicks. We spoke to every single member of the committee. In association with our board, the Hemp Trade Association and I drafted a position paper. I sent a link in the description of this video, but we have a position paper describing several of the reasons why we're opposed to House Bill 1328. We had that distributed. We reached out to every single company on our member list. We reached out, I personally made calls to, 2 or 3 dozen hemp companies and had them email or call state representatives on the General Laws Committee and express their opposition. So the good news for us was on that committee, we had several members. I want to thank Representative Ben Baker from Neosho, Representative Peter Meredith from St. Louis. There's probably a couple others, but these folks have already been aware of the significant controversy of the medical and recreational marijuana industry and the corrupt nature of the licensing that was promulgated by ballot initiatives. It's been a huge controversy. The lawmakers have been furious of this. There's been legislative and law enforcement investigations into the explicit corruption of the marijuana industry licensing, which is a subject for another time, but it implicates us because this proposal House Bill 1328 wants to give our industry to the licensed marijuana industry. So we made a number of comments here. Like, number one, we didn't have any input into the constitutional structure of marijuana regulation, nor can the legislature unilaterally attempt to modify the marijuana constitutional amendment in any way. The only way to do that is to go back to the vote of the people. So that's really problematic because it should be a principle that if we're going to be regulated by the state of Missouri, we should at least have some input into how. So to stick us under a framework that was drafted by a smaller group of marijuana industry folks and who excluded input from any other stakeholders is rankly unfair to us. And that was a basic principle, I think, that a lot of lawmakers, fundamentally agreed on. So if you watch the video of the hearing, and to do this, you would go to house.mo.gov, and there was a button on the, towards the end of the bottom of the page that says video archive. And then you go back to Tuesday, the 11th, and you look at the general laws hearing. I think, we were one of several bills that had a hearing in that committee on that day. So I think we started around 7 o'clock or so, but you can watch the whole hearing on the House video archive. And I encourage you to do so. So I want to talk about what actually happened in the hearing there. So Representative Gregory presented his bill. He actually made the most interesting thing to me was that he made this claim that there was I believe, a Pennsylvania company that had a hemp product that tested positive for fentanyl and heroin, which we had heard about this, and it turns out that product was not contaminated with fentanyl or heroin. It was the result of a bad field test, and a laboratory test was able to assure the people of Pennsylvania that no, the hemp industry is not sitting around in its labs and manufacturing facilities trying to figure out how they can add a deadly drug to their hemp products. So that was interesting. There's three witnesses for the for the bill. There was a gentleman from a marijuana testing facility who tried to fearmonger and called the process of converting CBD into delta 8 THC. He called it dangerous and uses chemicals. Well, the process by which you turn CBD into delta 8 THC, it's called isomerization. Many of you are already familiar with the process, but the process of isomerization is pervasively used in food processing, including producing like soy protein isolate and dozens of other processed food applications. So, and we'd communicated that at that point to the committee before. The second witness was a police officer, Matthew Crecelius from St. Louis. He came up and said, we're concerned about access by children and, potential, overdoses of delta 8 THC. Under questioning, however, by the committee, Mr. Crecelius was unable to identify a single instance where he had actually witnessed this happening, and just had to fall back on the fact that he is concerned about the potential for overdose or youth access. And then finally, the Missouri chapter of the American Academy for Pediatrics sent their lobbyist, Garrett Webb, to testify for the bill. Mr. Webb alleged that on Monday in Kansas City, there was a 14-year-old individual who had overdosed in Delta 8, and that the association was generally opposed to these products in the marketplace. So that was also interesting. The American Academy of Pediatric Physicians does not seem to have a ton of credibility, So and we believe the lobbyist also has conflicts of interest because he also represents Missouri MOCAN trade and Legal Missouri 2022, which was a campaign committee for Amendment 3. So, he's representing one client who is saying that THC and marijuana products shouldn't be on the market, and he's representing several other clients who say they should be. And he's trying to promote a bill that would wipe the hemp industry out of the market. So, we'll just note that that conflict of interest and let other people draw their own conclusions. Anyway, we also had our slate of witnesses. We had Brian Regal from South Point Hemp and Regal Dairy. He was our lead witness. He did a great job. We had John Grady from Slap Happy Beverages in Hermann, Missouri. He got a little heated, but he actually, I think, got the committee to understand that they're literally going to put out, startup companies, veteran-owned companies. Mr. Grady's a Marine and a Navy veteran. Displayed a lot of passion. I think the committee appreciated his point of view. We also had Sally Rivers from Lexington, Missouri. Sally and her husband DG are in process of building out a hemp decortication facility, and this facility is it's a multi-million-dollar facility. So part of the way that they're funding it is through sales of Delta 8 and hemp-derived Delta 9 THC products. And they said, hey, if you take this away from us, it makes it much more unlikely that we're going to be able to develop this processing infrastructure and get it going so that we can start putting fulfillment contracts out there for fiber production. And then we had Chief Hammond. Chris Hammond is the police chief in New Haven. We've also retained him as a part-time lobbyist, but he showcased a law enforcement view about this issue. So first off, In this industry, we know that people use their Delta 8 and Delta 10 products as alternatives to tobacco, to alcohol, to opiates, to methamphetamine. Our products are cheap and accessible. Our industry, at least members of our association, are very strict and very adamant about high quality testing standards. We know we have good products, and our products have utility for consumers. So Chief Hammond made the point: if you remove these products from the market, you increase the cost and decrease the access of a THC product, because we have over 5,000 stores that are selling these products. If you drop that number down to the 200 dispensaries that the marijuana industry has in Missouri, you'll have a lot of people can't who will have increased access challenges and increased costs, because the marijuana monopoly is not a competitive market. It's a monopoly where these companies can jack up the prices and make high amounts of profit. You will see price increases on THC access. So that will leave a lot of consumers in the dust. They'll go back to alcohol, nicotine, opiates. So from a law enforcement standpoint, this bill, if enacted, would risk escalating some of our addiction crises. That's in no one's interest. Plus, Chief Hammond also articulated the inherent trade-off, right? So if enacted, House Bill 1328 would mean that law enforcement has to go in and be trained to identify dozens of new products. It would subject these products to possession limits. It would subject these products to possession misdemeanors and felonies, where in the status quo, there's no issue from a law enforcement perspective on people using this. We don't hear reports of impaired driving or, very, very few reports, if any, of youth access. These products are by and large not on the radar of law enforcement. So putting them in the marijuana box would lead to law enforcement having to spend time, resources, and effort to identify and investigate and potentially prosecute and incarcerate people for possessing these products. It would functionally make every hemp farmer and every hemp manufacturer and their employees in the state of Missouri felons. So from a law enforcement standpoint, this is completely unnecessary. Plus removing tens of millions of dollars of tax revenue from the state would lead to fewer revenues that would sustain and support our police and sheriff departments, right? So, and this is at a time where retention and recruitment of law enforcement is a huge challenge. I live in Kansas City. KCPD is 320 officers down, right? So basically in Kansas City, the cops just rush from 911 call to 911 call, and there's a lot of stuff out there that's happening that they just don't have time to deal with. That's a public safety issue. So reducing the amount of money that cities and counties have to hire law enforcement officers and pay them appropriately is a public safety issue. That's removing the tax revenue from THC products from municipal and county and state budgets would lead to fewer law enforcement officers on the streets. That's a huge issue. So, again, nothing happens in a vacuum. And Chief Hammond was able to very expressly and very articulately discuss those challenges. We also saw testimony from old friend of mine, Courtney Curtis, former state representative from Ferguson, Missouri. Courtney was actually part of a hemp industry startup a few years ago, and when he was in the legislature, worked on these issues extensively. And he spoke to, from a free market standpoint, hemp is where you have true opportunity in cannabis. It's not in the marijuana side. The marijuana side is so controlled, so regulated, and so restrictive, and there's monopoly licensing, so it's exclusionary. So if you're an entrepreneur in the state of Missouri, particularly if you're a minority entrepreneur, you're going to get into the hemp side. You're not going to go into the marijuana side because you can't really have a licensed business there and innovate and bring products to market and really expand a profitable business. So definitely appreciated Courtney's testimony there. I think that resonated also with certain members of the committee. And then, you know, I think that's all of our witnesses. And then I think I followed up just to kind of address, the issue of why we should depart from federal uniformity that was established under the 2018 Farm Bill. So that was kind of the story in the hearing. Now, afterwards, the next day on Wednesday, I followed up with committee members. The committee chairman told me, Representative Alex Riley, again from Springfield, he told me directly, and he actually repeated this on the second occasion. He does not intend to bring the bill up for a vote, and he does not consider the bill to be a good bill and does not believe it's even salvageable by an amendment. So, if Representative Riley sticks to that position, we're in really good shape. That means that this bill will not make it out of committee, will not go to the House for full debate. Now, our lobbyists or our opposition, their lobbyists are smart, they're tenacious, and they're very well funded, right? They're going to try to look for any opportunity to come up with an amendment to possibly persuade the chairman to bring the bill back up for a vote and for an amendment and send it a little bit further along the process. Now, we're going to block that and we're going to oppose that as far as we can. And we're hoping that Chairman Alex Riley's position on this stays firm, and he does not see a reason to consider this issue further. Now, our opposition is trying to attach this bill to other hemp-related bills. So they tried to trick a Missouri senator into attaching this language to a bill to raise the THC level in hemp to 1%. We definitely caught that and had a conversation with that senator's office, and hopefully that proposal will be nipped in the bud. But here's the deal. Our legislative session ends on May 12th. That's Friday, second week of May, right? We have to be absolutely vigilant, and I will be in the Missouri Capitol every single day that legislators are working from here through May 12th to assure us that we are doing everything we can to not let this proposal move any further. That's the first step, right? The second step is after the Missouri General Assembly convenes or adjourns for the year in May, over June, July, August, September, October, November, we have to be fundraising. We have to be working together. We have to be pulling in all of our retail and distributors and wholesalers and manufacturers and farmers in the entire state and come together. Because the marijuana industry, they have a ton of money. They're sitting on $1 billion industry. They're pulling in, 120, $150 million a month. Right. So they're going to try to bury us in campaign contributions and hire more lobbyists. And, there's the only thing we're not going to be able to match them dollar for dollar, but we can show our elected officials that we have, number one, a lot of support for letting us keep our industry. And number two, advance a sensible regulatory proposal, as I mentioned before with Representative Rick Francis. We should be able to head off further attacks on our industry next year. So this is always my outlook on these things is always, a long-term outlook. We have to be building for the next, year or 2 years right now, or, at some point we will lose this fight. So I want to thank American Shaman, Pinnacle Hemp, Hemp Hooray, Sally's Hemp up in Lexington, Top Shelf Hemp, Mighty Kind Beverages out of St. Louis. I'm sure I'm probably forgetting a couple companies, but we had a lot of support from core members of the association. We had over 60 testimonies submitted in written form against this bill. So I want to thank all of those companies for their help and their financial support and for their physical presence and advocacy to get us where we are. I want to leave you all with a call to action. The Missouri Hemp Trade Association, we have a critical action alert on the website at mohemptrade.org. We also have a membership list and a membership program. So we need all of you to reach out to other retailers, other processors, manufacturers, wholesalers, farmers, and say, hey, if you have a vision for this, if you see the future of Missouri and the hemp industry, and if you're already here, it's something you've fought for, right? This is a fight that you have to be in. If you are not in this fight, there's a strong chance in a year or two there ain't going to be a hemp industry in Missouri, right? But if we come together, if we get all of our retailers and distributors and wholesalers and manufacturers together, and we stand up as a unified front, we should be able to protect our industry. So have your network go to mohemptrade.org/memberships and join our association. That's what we're going to be working on for most of the rest of the year, and keep educating our lawmakers and work on campaigns for next year and so forth. So thank you for spending all this time to listen to me and kind of walk through what happened this week. And I know we'll be in touch. Um, and please, this is very serious. We need your involvement. So I will try to update the association here in the next few weeks as we get closer to the end of the legislative session. And God bless you all, and let's make Missouri hemp great again.